My name is Rachel Anderson, 28 years old, and I never thought my greatest achievement would be ruined by my own nephew. After years of night classes and sacrifices, my graduation ceremony should have been my moment to shine. Instead, my sister Amanda's son Tyler threw my celebration cake on the floor and demanded I eat it off the ground. The room froze. My family stared. In that humiliating moment, I realized how my sister's golden child status had created a monster and how my silence had enabled it all. Before I tell you how I turned this breaking point into the beginning of my self-respect journey, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and subscribe to join others who found their voice after years of family disrespect. Growing up with Amanda was like living in perpetual shadow. 3 years younger, but miles ahead in our parents' affection, Amanda was the darling who could do no wrong. Our childhood home in suburban Connecticut displayed this reality in painful clarity. The living room showcased dozens of framed photos featuring Amanda's dance recitals, softball championships, and prom portraits. My academic achievements merited a single shelf in the hallway, which Mom would dust only when expecting company. The pattern was established early. For my 10th birthday, our parents presented me with a practical set of books they thought would help with my studies. 2 months later, Amanda's celebration included a backyard carnival complete with rented bounce house and cotton candy machine. When I expressed disappointment at the disparity, Mom patted my shoulder and said Amanda just brings more joy to celebrations. "You're so serious, Rachel." My strategy became academic excellence. If I couldn't compete with Amanda's natural charisma, perhaps perfect grades would finally earn parental approval. I threw myself into studying graduating valedictorian while Amanda barely maintained a B average. Dad's response: "That's nice, Rachel. Did you hear Amanda got asked to prom by the quarterback?" College scholarships allowed me to escape our hometown. I chose a university 3 states away, visiting only during major holidays. Amanda stayed local, dropping out after 2 years to marry her high school sweetheart, James. When she announced her pregnancy at 21, our parents were ecstatic. Dad converted his workshop into a nursery before Amanda had completed her first trimester. My master's degree announcement the same year warranted a brief phone call and a $20 gift card to Applebee's. Tyler arrived amid grandparent fanfare. Mom retired early to provide free childcare, and Dad established a college fund for the newborn. I sent gifts from afar, but maintained emotional distance. When Amanda and James divorced, after just 3 years, our parents rallied around her, providing financial support and endless childcare. The consequences of their coddling became apparent as Tyler grew older. By age 5, he demonstrated alarming behavior toward other children, pushing cousins off swings and demanding toys that weren't his. When I suggested to my sister that his behavior seemed concerning, Amanda bristled. "He's just spirited." Mom says he reminds her of me at that age. Our Aunt Martha, Mom's older sister, was the only relative who acknowledged the problem. During a rare private conversation at a family reunion, she confided, "Your mother treats Amanda exactly how our mother treated her. Like she hung the moon. It's not healthy, but pointing it out only makes me the villain." Despite everything, I maintained hope that adulthood would equalize our relationship. I imagined that as we matured, Amanda might recognize our parents' favoritism and form a more balanced connection with me. When I decided to pursue my doctoral degree while working full-time, I fantasized about finally earning my family's respect. After 6 grueling years of night classes, research, and dissertation writing, I'd achieved something no one in our family had before. The graduation ceremony was scheduled for June 15th. I invited my family with measured expectations, surprised when they all confirmed attendance. Mom, Dad, Amanda, and even 9-year-old Tyler. Perhaps this accomplishment would finally bridge the gap between us. I spent extra money on a professional haircut and new dress, wanting to look my best for the photos I hoped would finally earn space on our parents' crowded walls. The university auditorium buzzed with excitement as graduates adjusted caps and posed for photos with proud families. I spotted my parents and Amanda in the 5th row, Tyler fidgeting beside them in the blue button-down shirt I'd sent as a gift last Christmas. My stomach tightened with familiar anxiety, but I pushed it aside. Today would be different. The ceremony proceeded with traditional pomp. When my name was called Dr. Rachel Anderson, I heard a distinct whoop from the audience, Aunt Martha, who had driven 6 hours to attend. I searched for my parents' faces as I crossed the stage, finding them with polite smiles that paled compared to the neighbor family beside them, who were standing and cheering for their graduate. After the ceremony, I navigated through the crowd, diploma case clutched to my chest. Mom offered a quick hug, Dad a pat on the shoulder. "Looks like we're all done here." "We made reservations at Maggiano's for 5 o'clock, Dad announced, checking his watch. Rachel, Aunt Martha, enveloped me in a lavender-scented embrace. "I am so proud of you. A doctorate while working full-time. Your grandfather would have been over the moon." Amanda stood slightly apart, scrolling through her phone. "Great job, sis," she said without looking up. Tyler pulled at her arm, whining about being hungry. "We have time to take some photos first," I suggested. "There's a nice area by the fountain." Dad glanced at Amanda, who was still distracted by her phone. "Let's just do it at the restaurant. Tyler's getting antsy." The restaurant had prepared a semi-private room at my request. I'd ordered a special cake decorated with my university colors and a fondant graduation cap. "Congratulations, Doctor." Anderson was piped in elegant script across the top. Dinner conversation revolved mostly around Amanda's recent promotion at the local bank and Tyler's baseball league. When I attempted to share stories about my research, Dad nodded distractedly, while Mom asked Amanda to pass the bread. So Rachel, Aunt Martha interjected, "Tell us about your job prospects. With your qualifications, you must have exciting opportunities." Before I could answer, Amanda cut in. "Speaking of jobs, did I mention Tyler's school is doing a career day? Dad, I told them you'd come talk about real estate." The waitstaff brought out the cake after our meal, placing it at the center of the table. "Wow, fancy cake for fancy Rachel." Amanda remarked with a thin smile. "Who wants to cut it?" Mom asked, looking directly at Tyler. "Would you like to help Grandma serve Aunt Rachel's cake?" Tyler, who had been playing a game on Amanda's phone, barely looked up. "I don't want to." "Come on, sport," Dad encouraged. "Then we can get ice cream on the way home." I said no. Tyler slammed the phone down and crossed his arms. I reached for the knife. "That's okay, I can cut it." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Tyler lunged across the table, both hands shoving my carefully selected cake. It slid off the platter, landing with a dull splat on the restaurant's tiled floor, the fondant graduation cap breaking into pieces. The table fell silent. Then Tyler pointed at the mess and looked directly at me with a smirk that chilled my blood. "Eat it off the ground," he said, his voice clear and deliberate. "Dogs eat off the floor." I stared at him, then at my sister, waiting for the reprimand that would surely come. Instead, Amanda gave a nervous laugh. "Kids say the craziest things." My father cleared his throat. "Let's get the server to clean this up." "Tyler, that's not nice," my mother finally said, but her tone carried no conviction. She began gathering napkins. "That's it," I heard myself say, voice shaking. "He destroys my graduation cake and tells me to eat off the floor like a dog, and that's your response." Amanda's face hardened. "He's just a child, Rachel. Don't be so sensitive." "A child who's never heard the word no," I replied, looking from Amanda to our parents. "A child who's learning he can treat people like garbage because everyone in this family enables it." Aunt Martha placed a steady hand on my arm. "Rachel, maybe we should step outside for a moment." No. Something had broken loose inside me. I've stepped aside my entire life. I watched you all shower Amanda with attention while I worked twice as hard for a fraction of the acknowledgement. I've made excuses, tried to understand, kept the peace. But this, I gestured toward the destroyed cake. This is where it ends. I stood, napkin clutched in my trembling hand. I just earned a doctorate degree while working full-time. I paid my own way through school, built my career without handouts, and created a life to be proud of. And on this one day that should have been about celebrating that achievement, you've all managed to make it clear how little you value me. Tyler, sensing the tension but missing its significance, kicked at a piece of cake on the floor. "Aunt Rachel's mad because she's a loser." Amanda grabbed his arm. "That's enough, Tyler. Apologize." "No," he wrenched away from her. "I don't have to. Grandma always says Rachel needs to lighten up." My mother's face flushed. "I never said that, not in front of him anyway." The acknowledgement that she'd said it at all was the final confirmation I needed. I gathered my purse and the diploma case I'd proudly carried all day. "Thank you all for making this so clear. I won't be seeking your approval anymore." Tyler, I hope someone teaches you about consequences before the world does. It won't be as gentle as I would have been. I walked out of the restaurant, ignoring my mother's calls to come back and my father's offer to order another cake. In my car, I finally allowed the tears to fall mourning, not just the ruined celebration, but the family relationship I'd always hoped for but never truly had. The drive home from the restaurant became a blur of streetlights and suppressed sobs. I barely remembered navigating the 20 minutes to my apartment muscle memory, guiding me as my mind replayed Tyler's words, "Eat it off the ground." What haunted me most wasn't his behavior. He was a product of years of indulgence, but my family's reaction. Their dismissal confirmed what I'd spent years denying in our family dynamic. My feelings were simply less important. I stumbled into my apartment, the place I'd neglected during years of doctoral work. Half-packed moving boxes lined the walls I'd been planning to relocate for a promising job offer in Seattle. My phone buzzed repeatedly, 3 texts from Mom telling me I'd overreacted, 2 from Amanda demanding I apologize for traumatizing Tyler, and 1 from Aunt Martha asking if I was okay. I silenced the device and sank onto my couch. The following morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. My body felt leaden, my thoughts foggy. I alternated between rage and despair, questioning every family memory through this newly crystallized lens. Had there ever been a time when my achievements mattered, when my presence wasn't merely tolerated but welcomed? By day 3 of self-imposed isolation, my apartment had devolved into a reflection of my mental state takeout containers, piled up unwashed clothes, scattered across furniture. I'd ignored calls from everyone except Aunt Martha, who left voicemails of increasing concern. When my phone rang with a call from my doctoral advisor, Dr. Eleanor Hayes, I nearly let it go to voicemail before reluctantly answering. "Rachel, I expected to hear from you about the Westlake position. They're eager to finalize your contract. The prestigious research position in Seattle, a perfect fit for my qualifications and career goals." I'd been so excited about it before the graduation disaster. "I'm sorry, I managed my voice rough from disuse. There's been a family situation." A pause. "Are you all right? You don't sound like yourself." Something about her genuine concern cracked my carefully maintained composure. Words tumbled out: the cake incident, years of favoritism, my growing certainty that distance from my family was necessary for my mental health. Dr. Hayes listened without interruption. "Rachel," she said, "finally, I've watched you tackle the most challenging research questions with determination and clarity. Apply that same analytical approach to this situation. What boundaries do you need? What relationship with your family serves your well-being?" Her practical framing gave me the first moment of clarity I'd had in days. This wasn't just about a ruined cake or a bratty nephew. It was about recognizing a lifetime pattern and deciding finally to stop participating in it. "I need to call Westlake," I said with sudden resolve. "And then I need to find a therapist in Seattle." "That's my girl," Dr. Hayes replied. "And Rachel, some families are forged by blood, others by choice. In Seattle, you have the freedom to build the latter." After hanging up, I opened my laptop for the first time since the graduation and began searching for apartments in Seattle. The 6-figure salary at Westlake would allow me comfort. I'd never experienced a deliberate investment in my own value. That evening, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Amanda standing in the hallway, arms crossed defensively. "Mom sent me to check on you," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. Her eyes widened at the disarray. "Wow, dramatic much. It was just a cake." I felt a familiar urge to accommodate her, to minimize my feelings, to keep the peace. Instead, I said simply, "It wasn't just the cake." Amanda rolled her eyes. "Here we go. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're jealous of Tyler. He's a child, Rachel. A child who told me to eat off the floor like a dog with 0 consequences." I kept my voice steady. "But you're right about one thing. This isn't about Tyler. It's about a lifetime of being treated as less than. I'm done with it." Her expression flickered between anger and something less definable, perhaps the first glimmer of understanding. "So what, you're just cutting us off? Over a stupid cake?" I gestured toward the moving boxes. "I'm taking the job in Seattle. I need space to figure out what kind of relationship with our family is healthy for me." "You can't just leave. What about holidays? What about Mom and Dad?" Real panic edged into her voice now. "They'll still have their favorite child and grandchild." I replied, the words sharp but not untrue. "They've made it clear. That's enough." Amanda's face reddened. That's not fair. It's not my fault they treat us differently. No, it's not, I agreed, surprising her. But it is your responsibility as an adult to recognize it and not perpetuate it through Tyler. He's learning that hurting others has no consequences as long as you're the favored one. Is that really what you want for him? She had no immediate response, her certainty visibly wavering. After a long moment, she asked in a smaller voice, "When do you leave?" 2 weeks. I'd appreciate if you'd respect my need for space until then. After she left, I felt a strange lightness. For the first time, I'd stated my needs without apology or excessive explanation. It felt foreign but necessary, like exercising atrophied muscles. That night, I finally returned Aunt Martha's calls. "I'm moving to Seattle," I told her. "Good," she said firmly. "It's about time you put yourself first. Your parents and sister will either grow from the distance or they won't, but that's their work to do, not yours." The next morning, I contacted a therapist in Seattle recommended by Dr. Hayes and scheduled a virtual session before my move. When I finally returned to work, colleagues commented on a change they couldn't quite identify. "You seem different," my office mate observed. "More present." I smiled, recognizing the truth in her words. The fog of seeking approval had lifted, leaving clarity in its wake. The broken cake had shattered more than a celebration. It had broken the spell of family obligation that had constrained me for decades. Seattle greeted me with uncharacteristic sunshine the day my flight landed. From the plane window, Mount Rainier stood majestic against the skyline, a sentinel overlooking the city that would become my new home. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I too was emerging from clouds that had long obscured my view. The corporate housing, arranged by Westlake Research Institute, would be my home for the first month while I searched for a permanent apartment. The sleek one-bedroom with its panoramic city views felt worlds away from my cramped graduate student housing. That first night, I stood on the balcony breathing in the unfamiliar scent of saltwater and possibility. My phone had been notably quiet since I'd informed my parents of my decision to move. Mom had attempted several guilt-inducing texts. "I can't believe you're abandoning the family over a silly misunderstanding." Dad's lone message was more practical. "The movers will need access to your apartment. Leave the key with the super." Amanda oscillated between angry accusations and tentative questions about when I might visit. I responded only to the logistical inquiries, maintaining the boundaries I was just learning to establish. My first day at Westlake introduced me to my research team, 6 brilliant scientists who welcomed me without the weight of history or expectation. Dr. Kimberly Chen, the institute director, took me to lunch in the building's top-floor restaurant. "Your dissertation on epigenetic factors in autoimmune disorders was exceptional," she said, skipping small talk entirely. "We've already submitted your research proposal for NIH funding consideration." I nearly choked on my water. Already, I thought that would take months of preparation. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "We move quickly when we recognize talent." "Is that a problem?" "Not at all," I replied, straightening. "I'm ready." This, I realized, was what recognition felt like: straightforward acknowledgement of ability without qualification or diminishment. My first therapy session occurred via video chat, while surrounded by moving boxes in my new apartment, a sun-drenched 2-bedroom in Capitol Hill with original hardwood floors, and a small balcony where I envisioned having morning coffee. Dr. Rosenberg, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and penetrating eyes, listened as I recounted the graduation incident and the history that preceded it. "What strikes me," she said after I finished, "is how you've internalized the role of family peacekeeper. You've measured your worth by their validation, which they've systematically withheld." The observation landed like a physical blow. I thought if I achieved enough, they'd finally see me. She nodded. "A common trap. Academic success became your bid for love. The question now is what happens when you pursue success for its own sake or for your satisfaction alone." That question became the framework for our weekly sessions. As Seattle's summer unfolded into fall, I established rhythms that honored my needs rather than accommodating others. I joined a hiking group that explored the Cascade foothills on weekends. I furnished my apartment with pieces chosen purely for my enjoyment: a teal velvet sofa that reminded me of peacock feathers, abstract art in vibrant colors, bookshelves filled with novels I denied myself during years of academic reading. At work, I thrived in an environment where my contributions were valued. When our team's preliminary research showed promising results, Dr. Chen put me forward as lead presenter at an international conference in Vancouver. The paper received the conference's Innovation Award, and a photo of me accepting it appeared in the Seattle Times Science section. The day after publication, my phone lit up with a text from Amanda Saw. "Your picture in the paper, Mom's cousin forwarded. Congrats, I guess. Tyler asked about you yesterday." It was the first contact in nearly 3 months. I felt a familiar pull to respond immediately to express gratitude for the half-hearted acknowledgement. Instead, I waited until evening when I could respond from a centered place. "Thank you. The research is going well. I hope Tyler is doing well in school." Brief, polite, and maintaining appropriate distance. Dr. Rosenberg would have approved. As Thanksgiving approached, the expected family pressure mounted. Mom left voicemails with increasing urgency. "We always spend Thanksgiving together. Surely you're not still upset about that graduation nonsense." During therapy, I expressed my conflicted feelings. Part of me wants to go just to avoid the drama. Another part feels physically ill at the thought of sitting at that table pretending everything's normal. "What would it look like to create your own tradition?" Dr. Rosenberg asked. That question led me to host my first Friendsgiving, a gathering of colleagues and members of my hiking group. I spent days preparing, discovering a joy in cooking I'd never explored. My apartment filled with conversation and laughter. Guests sprawled comfortably on cushions when we ran out of chairs. Late in the evening, as we shared stories over wine, my colleague Jason said to Rachel, who not only saved our lab experiment when the power went out last week, but also makes a cranberry sauce that's changed my life. The table erupted in cheers and laughter. I felt a warmth expand in my chest, a sense of belonging earned through authentic connection rather than DNA. That night, after everyone left, I sat on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching Seattle's lights shimmer. My phone showed 4 missed calls from my parents' house. Instead of guilt, I felt certainty. My family might never understand my boundaries, but that no longer prevented me from establishing them. Christmas brought another opportunity for growth. Rather than subjecting myself to the family gathering, I volunteered at a local shelter, serving meals, then joined a fellow researcher whose family also lived far away for a movie marathon and Chinese takeout. On New Year's Eve, as fireworks exploded over Space Needle, I made a resolution that would have been unthinkable months earlier. I would engage with my family only in ways that maintained my dignity and peace. No more self-betrayal for the illusion of harmony. January brought heavy Seattle rains and an unexpected email from Aunt Martha. "I'm coming to a gardening conference in Seattle next month. Would love to see your new place if you're comfortable with that." Her respect for my boundaries touched me deeply. We arranged a weekend visit that became one of the most healing experiences of my adult life. Martha brought photo albums I'd never seen, including pictures of my childhood achievements my parents had apparently documented but never displayed. "Your mother's inability to celebrate you has everything to do with her, and nothing to do with your worth," Martha said as we paged through images of science fair victories and piano recitals. Some parents can only see themselves in one child, usually the one who mirrors them most closely. Amanda was that mirror for your mother. As winter yielded to spring, I discovered a sense of rootedness in Seattle. My research garnered attention from medical journals, and I began mentoring 2 graduate students. My apartment no longer felt temporary, but like a true home, the first space that fully reflected my personality without compromise. When the anniversary of my graduation approached, Dr. Rosenberg suggested a reclamation ritual. "That day was stolen from you. How might you honor your achievement in a way that can't be diminished?" The answer came unexpectedly, while hiking with my now close friend Eliza from the research team. As we reached a stunning viewpoint overlooking a cascade of waterfalls, she asked about my doctoral journey. For the first time, I shared the story without minimizing either my accomplishment or the pain of its diminishment. When I finished, Eliza was quiet for a moment before saying we should celebrate properly. A do-over. 2 weeks later, my Seattle family of choice surprised me with a graduation party in the Institute's rooftop garden, complete with a doctoral-themed cake, champagne, and genuine toasts celebrating my work. Dr. Chen presented me with a framed copy of our recently published research paper. "To Dr. Rachel Anderson," she said, raising her glass, "whose brilliance is matched only by her dedication." As camera flashes captured, the moment I realized no one had pushed my accomplishment aside or made it about themselves. This was the recognition I'd always sought, not because I demanded it, but because I'd surrounded myself with people capable of giving it freely. That night, I added the photos to a growing collection on my living room wall, physical evidence of a life reclaimed and rebuilt on my own terms. Seattle's June gloom had finally yielded to summer sunshine when the text arrived from Amanda. Mom, Dad, Tyler, and I are coming to Seattle next week for Dad's college reunion. We expect to see you. No question, no request, just the familiar expectation of compliance. 6 months earlier, I might have rearranged my schedule to accommodate them. Now, I felt a surge of indignation at the presumption. After consulting with Dr. Rosenberg, I crafted a measured response. I have work commitments, but could meet for lunch on Saturday if that works with your schedule. Setting boundaries still felt uncomfortable, like wearing shoes half a size too small. But I was learning to tolerate the discomfort, rather than immediately surrendering my needs. Amanda's reply came hours later. Fine. Dad says there's a seafood place downtown he wants to try. We'll be there at noon on Saturday. That gave me 5 days to prepare emotionally. I scheduled an emergency therapy session, doubled my morning meditation practice, and warned my closest friends I might need support afterward. When Saturday arrived, I chose my outfit deliberately, a professional dress in vibrant teal that projected confidence paired with the pearl earrings Aunt Martha had given me. Armor up, I whispered to my reflection. The restaurant, an upscale establishment overlooking Puget Sound, had been my suggestion-neutral territory where public setting might discourage drama. I arrived 15 minutes early to secure a table with a view and ordered a sparkling water to calm my nerves. They arrived as a unit, Dad leading with his characteristic purposeful stride, Mom scanning the restaurant with barely concealed judgment, Amanda herding a sullen Tyler who was absorbed in a handheld game. None of them had bothered to dress for the occasion. My father's college sweatshirt and my mother's casual pantsuit suggested this lunch ranked low on their priority list. You're looking different, Mom said after minimal greetings, her eyes taking in my professional appearance with surprise. Thank you, I replied, neither apologizing for nor explaining the changes in my appearance or demeanor. Seattle obviously agrees with you, Dad, added, studying the menu prices with a slight frown. Though I can't imagine why anyone would choose to live with this much rain. I love it here, I said simply. The Research Institute is world-class and I've made wonderful friends. Friends aren't family, Mom interjected with the swift certainty of someone delivering an irrefutable truth. Sometimes they're better, I countered, then turned to Tyler. How's school going? He shrugged without looking up from his game. Amanda nudged him. Answer your aunt. It's fine, he muttered. Can I have soda? The waiter's arrival temporarily paused the tension. As we ordered, I noticed my parents' subtle controlling behaviors I'd previously accepted as normal. My father ordering for my mother without consultation. Amanda scanning the children's menu for Tyler despite him being old enough to read. Once the waiter departed, Dad cleared his throat. So we've been discussing your absence at family gatherings. The directness surprised me. Typically, my family preferred passive-aggressive hints to open confrontation. Yes, I acknowledged neither defending nor explaining. Mom filled the ensuing silence. It's been very hard on everyone, especially Tyler. He doesn't understand why his aunt suddenly disappeared. I glanced at Tyler, who remained engrossed in his game, showing no interest in our conversation. I didn't disappear. I moved for a career opportunity, which I communicated clearly. After overreacting to a child's misbehavior, Amanda added her tone sharp. I took a measured sip of water before responding. I didn't leave because of Tyler. His behavior at my graduation was simply the final evidence of a family dynamic I needed to step away from. What's that supposed to mean? Dad's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. It means I spent my entire life feeling less valued, less important, and less worthy of celebration than Amanda or Tyler. It means I needed to create distance to build a life where my achievements and feelings matter. Mom's face flushed. That's ridiculous. We've always supported you. When have you ever supported me the way you support Amanda? I asked quietly. When have you ever defended me the way you defend Tyler? We paid for your undergraduate degree, Dad countered. No, my scholarships did. You paid for Amanda's degree, her wedding, her divorce lawyer, and provide free childcare for Tyler. I worked through school and built my career without assistance. The food arrived, creating another welcome pause. We ate in uncomfortable silence until Tyler dropped his fork with a clatter. "This fish is gross. I want chicken nuggets." "Sweetie, they don't have chicken nuggets here," Amanda soothed. "Try the mac and cheese from my plate." "No, I want nuggets now." His voice escalated to a near shout. Rather than address the behavior, Amanda immediately signaled the waiter. "Excuse me, is there any way the kitchen could prepare some simple chicken tenders? My son doesn't like the fish." I watched the familiar pattern unfold Tyler's demands. Amanda's accommodation, my parents' tacit approval. But now I could see it with clarity sharpened by distance and therapy. "Tyler," I said directly, surprising everyone, including myself, "this is an upscale restaurant that doesn't serve chicken nuggets. You have other options on your plate, or you can choose to wait until later to eat." 3 shocked adult faces turned toward me. Tyler's eyes narrowed, assessing whether this new version of his aunt could be manipulated. "Grandma would get me nuggets." "I'm not Grandma," I replied calmly. Amanda bristled. "Don't parent my child, Rachel." "Someone," I responded, keeping my voice level. "He's old enough to learn that the world doesn't rearrange itself around his preferences." "This is exactly why we needed to have this conversation," Dad interjected. "Your attitude has become completely unacceptable. First, you abandon the family, then you criticize how we relate to each other." "I didn't abandon anyone. I established healthy boundaries after years of being treated as an afterthought." The words flowed more easily now, practiced in therapy and validated by my experiences since moving. "I've spent the past year building a life where my work is valued, and my presence is welcomed, not merely tolerated." "So you think you're better than us now?" Amanda demanded. "With your fancy job and expensive apartment?" "No, I think I deserve basic respect, which I've found here in Seattle among people who had no obligation to provide it." I folded my napkin beside my plate. "What I haven't understood is why it was so difficult to receive from my own family." My mother's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something recognition regret crossing her features before disappearing. "We came here hoping to mend fences, not to be lectured about our failures." "I'm not lecturing. I'm telling you what I need for us to have any relationship moving forward." I met each of their gazes in turn. "I need acknowledgement of the pattern that's existed in our family. I need respect for my boundaries. And I need Tyler to apologize for his behavior at my graduation." "He's just a child," Amanda protested automatically. "He's 10 years old, not 3. He's old enough to understand the impact of his actions." I turned to Tyler, who was now watching the adult conversation with wary interest. "Tyler, do you remember what happened at my graduation dinner?" He squirmed in his seat, glancing at his mother for rescue. When none came, he mumbled, "I pushed your cake." "And what did you say to me afterward?" His gaze dropped to the table. I said, "To eat it off the ground." "Why did you say that?" The directness of my questioning clearly unsettled him. He shrugged. "I don't know. I was mad you were getting attention." The simple honesty of his answer hung in the air, a truth so clear, even a child could articulate it. The issue had never been Tyler's behavior, but the family dynamic that nurtured it. "Thank you for being honest," I told him. "That's a good first step." Dad signaled for the check, clearly eager to end the conversation. "Well, this has been sufficiently uncomfortable for everyone. Discomfort is sometimes necessary for growth," I replied, reaching for my wallet. "I'll get my portion." "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. "I'm paying." For once, I didn't argue. As he handed his credit card to the waiter, Mom leaned toward me. "We do love you, Rachel. In our way." "I know," I said, and I meant it. But sometimes love without respect feels worse than no love at all. Outside the restaurant, the Seattle sun illuminated Mount Rainier in the distance. As we prepared to part ways, Amanda hung back while our parents walked ahead with Tyler. "I don't understand why everything has to be such a big deal with you now," she said, a note of genuine confusion in her voice. "We've always gotten along fine before." "No, Amanda. You got what you needed and I accepted scraps. That worked fine for you, not for me." She flinched at the bluntness. "So what now? You're just done with us?" I considered her question seriously. "I'm done with the old dynamic. Whether we build something new depends on all of us." As I watched them walk away toward their hotel, I felt none of the guilt or anxiety such an encounter would have previously triggered. Instead, I experienced a profound certainty that whatever happened next, whether my family could adjust to the new boundaries or not, I would be okay. Rather than returning directly to my apartment, I walked along the waterfront, giving myself time to process. When I finally checked my phone, I found a text from Amanda. Tyler says he's sorry about your cake. A small step, perhaps. But sometimes healing begins with the smallest acknowledgments. The autumn following my family's visit marked a professional milestone. Our research team's work on epigenetic treatments for autoimmune disorders had progressed from theoretical to practical application, with clinical trials scheduled for the following spring. Dr. Chen called me into her office on a rainy October afternoon. The NIH is hosting a symposium in December featuring breakthrough research, she said without preamble. They've requested you present our findings. I blinked in surprise. Me specifically, your paper was the one that caught their attention. She slid a formal invitation across her desk. This is a career-making opportunity, Rachel. The audience will include the top researchers in immunology and representatives from major pharmaceutical companies. 2 years earlier, I would have immediately downplayed the achievement, deflected the praise, or worried about seeming arrogant. Instead, I simply smiled and said I'd be honored to represent our team. Preparation for the symposium consumed my free time. I refined the presentation, obsessively practicing delivery before colleagues who offered constructive feedback without the cutting commentary I'd grown accustomed to from family. My confidence grew with each rehearsal. The evening before my flight to Washington, D.C., I received an unexpected call from Aunt Martha. I'll be at the symposium, she announced. My garden club friend's daughter works for NIH and mentioned your name. I'm coming to support you. The gesture brought tears to my eyes. You'd fly across the country just for my presentation. Rachel, she said gently, someone should have been flying across the country for your achievements all along. The symposium venue, a grand auditorium at NIH headquarters, intimidated with its size and prestigious history. As attendees filtered in, I spotted Aunt Martha taking a seat in the third row, giving me a thumbs up that calmed my racing heart. When introduced as Dr. Rachel Anderson, whose groundbreaking research may revolutionize treatment protocols for lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, I stepped to the podium with steady hands. The presentation flowed naturally, years of research distilled into 30 compelling minutes. The questions afterward demonstrated the audience's engagement and understanding. At the reception following my talk, pharmaceutical representatives and senior researchers sought me out. I exchanged business cards, discussed potential collaborations, and accepted compliments without deflection or qualification. You were magnificent, Martha said when we finally had a moment alone. The way you handled that skeptical question about methodology, I wanted to applaud. I knew my research was solid, I replied, surprising myself with the easy confidence. His objection was based on outdated literature. Martha studied me with evident pride. Do you know what I see when I look at you now? A woman who finally understands her value. That evening over dinner, at a restaurant overlooking the Potomac, Martha shared family news I hadn't sought out. Your parents attended Thanksgiving at Amanda's new boyfriend's family home. Apparently, Tyler had a meltdown when he wasn't allowed to watch TV during dinner. Rather than satisfaction, I felt a complex mixture of vindication and sadness. Is he seeing anyone about his behavior? Amanda finally agreed to counseling from what I hear. Your confrontation at that Seattle lunch made more impact than you might realize. The conversation turned to Martha's garden club and my Seattle friends, but her words lingered. Perhaps my truth-telling had created ripples beyond my own healing. Returning to Seattle, I threw myself into preparations for the clinical trials. Dr. Chen appointed me project coordinator, a position that came with both a substantial raise and a private office, with a view of Mount Rainier. When clear, the mountain's presence reminded me daily of the steady strength I was cultivating. As Christmas approached, holiday party invitations filled my calendar. Colleagues' hiking group neighborhood gathering. Unlike the previous year's deliberate alternative celebrations, these invitations came naturally, evidence of the community I'd built. A holiday card arrived from my parents, formal and impersonal except for a handwritten note from my mother. Your aunt tells us you're doing important work. We're proud in our way. Not an apology or even a direct acknowledgement of past patterns, but perhaps the beginning of a shift. More surprising was the separate card from Amanda containing a school photo of Tyler and a brief note he's been working with a counselor on impulse control. Baby steps. I displayed both cards on my mantle alongside the more effusive greetings from Seattle friends. They represented different facets of my life now, the family of origin with its complicated history and the family of choice with its authentic connections. The new year brought publication of our research in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine, with my name as lead author. A frame containing the journal cover joined the growing gallery wall in my living room, visible reminders of accomplishments that existed independent of family validation. My therapy sessions with Dr. Rosenberg shifted focus from healing past wounds to building future vision. "What would you have pursued earlier if you hadn't been seeking parental approval?" she asked during one particularly illuminating session. The question led me to register for weekend painting classes, an interest I'd abandoned in adolescence after my mother praised Amanda's elementary watercolors while ignoring my own artistic efforts. The rediscovery of creativity purely for personal enjoyment became another form of reclamation. Spring brought success in the preliminary clinical trials and an unexpected development in my personal life. Nathan, a fellow researcher who'd recently joined Westlake from Johns Hopkins, invited me to dinner. Unlike previous relationships where I'd molded myself to meet expectations, I approached this connection from a place of authentic self-knowledge. "I've spent the past year focused on building independence," I told him honestly during our third date. "I'm still learning what a healthy relationship looks like." "That makes two of us," he replied with refreshing candor. "My last relationship ended because I worked too much. I'm trying to find better balance." The honesty established a foundation of mutual respect. As spring progressed to summer, we explored Seattle together, hiking forest trails, sampling neighborhood restaurants, attending outdoor concerts. His presence in my life developed naturally, without the desperate need for validation that had characterized my previous relationships. On a sun-drenched July afternoon, while picnicking at Discovery Park, Nathan asked about my family. I shared the full story: the graduation incident, the Seattle lunch confrontation, the ongoing minimal contact. "Have you considered inviting them to see your life here?" he asked. "Not to reconcile on their terms, but to show them who you've become on yours." The suggestion resonated in unexpected ways. I'd been living reactively regarding my family, either conforming to their expectations or deliberately distancing from them. Perhaps it was time for a proactive approach from my position of newfound strength. After discussing the idea with Dr. Rosenberg, I composed an email to my parents and Amanda. "I'll be giving the keynote address at the Pacific Northwest Medical Research Conference on September 15th. You're welcome to attend if you're interested in seeing this aspect of my life. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door they could choose to walk through or not." Mom's reply came the next day. "We'll check our calendar." Non-committal, but not an outright refusal. Amanda responded separately. "Tyler has soccer that weekend, but maybe we could work something out. He's different now. So am I a little." Whatever their decision, I realized I was approaching the interaction from a fundamentally different position than before. My worth no longer hinged on their validation. My life in Seattle, my career achievements, my growing relationship with Nathan, my cherished friendships existed as concrete evidence of my value, visible to anyone willing to see. As summer transitioned to early fall, my apartment reflected the evolution of the past year. Framed credentials and award certificates shared wall space with my emerging artwork. Bookshelves displayed both academic texts and novels I read purely for pleasure. Photos captured moments of joy with Seattle friends alongside the more formal family images. When Nathan helped me prepare for the conference presentation, he observed, "You speak differently about your research now compared to when we first met. More ownership, less qualification." I spent years explaining myself to family members who weren't really listening, I realized aloud. I've stopped diluting my expertise to make others comfortable. The evening before the conference, I received a text from Amanda. "We'll be there tomorrow, all three of us. Mom and Dad too." A year earlier, the message would have triggered anxiety about their judgment or potential disruption. Now I felt curious, but calm. They would see me in my element, excelling in a field they barely understood. Whatever their reaction, I would remain anchored in the truth of what I'd built. That night, standing on my balcony overlooking the city lights, I felt a profound sense of completion. The painful graduation incident had launched me toward necessary growth, like a rocket requiring explosive force to break free of gravity's pull. The broken cake had led to a reconstructed identity stronger, more authentic, and finally, genuinely my own. The Pacific Northwest Medical Research Conference occupied the grand ballroom of Seattle's most prestigious hotel. Walking through the venue during morning setup, I felt a deep sense of belonging among the research posters, technical displays, and clusters of attendees in professional attire. This world of evidence-based inquiry and scholarly discourse had become my home in ways my family's house never had. Dr. Chen appeared at my elbow as I reviewed my presentation notes. "Nervous about your family coming." Her perception startled me. "How did you know?" She smiled. "You've checked your phone 17 times in the past hour. You're never distracted before presentations." "They've never seen me in this context," I admitted. "I'm not sure what to expect." "Remember, Rachel," she said, straightening my conference badge, "they're entering your territory now. You're the authority here." Her words steadied me as attendees began filing into the ballroom. I scanned the crowd for familiar faces, spotting Nathan near the front row. He gave me an encouraging nod before turning to chat with colleagues. The program began with introductory remarks and a panel discussion where I participated alongside researchers from Stanford and MIT. Immersed in the technical conversation, I momentarily forgot about my family's impending arrival. During the mid-morning break, Nathan approached with coffee. "They're here," he said, quietly gesturing toward the entrance. My parents stood just inside the doorway, looking simultaneously out of place, and strangely formal dad in a suit that appeared a decade out of style, mom in a floral dress better suited to a garden party than a scientific conference. Amanda hovered beside them in business, casual attire, one hand gripping Tyler's shoulder. Even from across the room, I could see Tyler's suppressed restlessness. Taking a deep breath, I crossed the ballroom to greet them. "You made it," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Thank you for coming." Dad extended a stiff hand as if meeting a business associate. "Impressive turnout." Rachel Tyler burst out suddenly. "I saw your picture on the big sign outside." His genuine excitement caught me off guard. I smiled at him. "That's right. I'm giving the main speech after lunch. Like the whole thing is about you." His eyes widened with newfound respect. "About my research," I clarified. "Would you like to see some of it?" While my parents and Amanda exchanged uncertain glances, Tyler nodded eagerly. I led him to my research poster, where visual representations of cellular responses and data graphs filled a professional display. "This looks super complicated," he observed. "It is," I agreed. "But I'll tell you the simple version. We're teaching the body's defense system to stop attacking itself in certain diseases." He considered this. Like how my counselor says I need to stop when I feel like breaking stuff. The unexpected parallel made me laugh. Something like that, yes. My parents and Amanda had followed at a distance, observing our interaction. Mom stepped forward, examining the institutional logos and credentials displayed on my poster. "Westlake is affiliated with all these universities. We collaborate with research teams worldwide," I explained, unable to keep the pride from my voice. "Our clinical trial results have attracted significant attention." A distinguished older gentleman approached our group. "Dr. Anderson, forgive the interruption. The NIH representatives were hoping to discuss the funding application before your keynote." "Of course, Dr. Jameson. I'll join you in a moment." I turned back to my family. "I need to handle this. Nathan can show you to your seats for the luncheon." As I walked away, I felt a strange reversal. For the first time, I was the one excusing myself for important business, leaving them to wait. The power dynamic had shifted in ways large and small. The luncheon passed in a blur of networking and last-minute presentation adjustments. From my seat at the speaker's table, I occasionally glanced toward my family, seated at a table near the middle of the room. Tyler appeared surprisingly engaged, peppering Nathan with questions between courses. My parents maintained their reserved expressions, though I caught Mom watching me interact with colleagues, her gaze unreadable. When the conference director introduced me as one of the most innovative young researchers in immunological therapy, accompanied by a list of my credentials and publications, I approached the podium with steady confidence. The spotlight felt familiar, now earned through dedicated work rather than desperate bids for attention. My keynote flowed smoothly, technical enough to satisfy the scientific audience, but with clear explanations of real-world applications. During the question period, I handled complex inquiries with ease, occasionally injecting humor that drew appreciative laughter. Scanning the audience during my concluding remarks, I found my family's faces. Dad sat straight-backed, attentive, but inscrutable. Mom's expression had softened, somewhat a slight furrow between her brows, suggesting concentration. Amanda leaned forward, apparently absorbed despite herself. Most surprising was Tyler, who had abandoned his handheld game in favor of actually listening. Medical research requires persistence through failure, I concluded. The breakthrough moments come after countless unsuccessful attempts, teaching us that setbacks often contain the seeds of future success. Thank you. The applause was gratifying, but it was my family's reaction I found myself watching. Dad clapped with formal correctness. Mom's applause seemed genuine if reserved. Amanda joined the standing ovation after a moment's hesitation. Tyler, mimicking those around him, stood and whistled loudly enough to draw startled looks. After fielding congratulations from colleagues, I finally made my way back to my family. Dad cleared his throat. Very impressive presentation. Didn't understand half of it, but clearly others did. From him, this constituted effusive praise. You were so professional up there, Mom added. I had no idea your work was so significant. The boy who asked about autoimmune responses in children, Amanda, said, surprising me with her specific observation. Your answer was really compassionate. That's literally her job, Mom, Tyler interjected with the brutal honesty of children. She's a doctor who helps sick people. The simple description, free from comparison or qualification, felt more validating than any previous family interaction. Would you like to see the research facility I offered? It's just a few blocks from here. The walk to Westlake provided a natural buffer, allowing conversation to flow more easily outside the conference's formal setting. Tyler walked alongside me, peppering me with questions about my work. His curiosity seemed genuine, untainted by the competitive dynamic that had defined my relationship with Amanda. At the Institute, security badges and visitor protocols impressed my parents visibly. The tour of state-of-the-art laboratories and my private office with its nameplate Dr. Rachel Anderson, Research Director, created a concrete reality they couldn't minimize or reframe. You've done well for yourself, Dad acknowledged as we gathered in the Institute's atrium afterward. The grudging respect in his voice suggested a shift in perception, however small. Your apartment next to Amanda suggested her tone lighter than it had been in years. My home, the space I'd created to reflect my authentic self, was the final piece of this carefully orchestrated day. I hesitated briefly, then nodded. Nathan will meet us there. He's picking up dinner. The elevator ride to my floor felt momentarily awkward, 4 adults and 1 child contained in silence. As we reached my door, I realized I wasn't seeking their approval of my choices, merely showing the reality of my life, whether they appreciated it or not. Wow, Tyler exclaimed as we entered, running immediately to the wall of windows overlooking Puget Sound. You can see boats from here. Mom moved slowly through the living room, examining the artwork, photographs, and bookshelves with careful attention. She paused before the gallery wall, displaying my academic achievements alongside personal photographs. You've kept family photos, she observed quietly. Of course, I replied. Complicated relationships are still relationships. Dad stood awkwardly in the center of the room until he spotted my small, upright piano in the corner. You're playing again. Just for enjoyment, I said. The piano, a recent purchase, represented another reclaimed pleasure abandoned in adolescence, after repeated comparisons to Amanda's superior musical talent. Amanda wandered toward my painting corner, where several watercolors dried on a rack. These yours? I nodded. A hobby I've rediscovered. They're good, she said, surprising me with her direct compliment. Really good, actually. Nathan's arrival with takeout from my favorite Mediterranean restaurant created a welcome diversion. As we arranged dinner on the balcony table, I observed my family adjusting to this new context, a life I'd built without their input or approval. Conversation during dinner flowed more naturally than I'd anticipated. Nathan skillfully drew out my parents about their college reunion visit to Seattle, while Tyler entertained us with stories about his soccer team. As sunset painted the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks, Mom said suddenly, I wish we'd visited sooner. The simple statement hung in the air, loaded with unspoken acknowledgments. Me too, I replied, accepting the oblique olive branch. Tyler, oblivious to the subtext, pointed toward my bookshelf. What's that weird glass thing? My research award from NIH, I explained. For the work that's going into clinical trials. Like they give prizes for science, that's kind of cool. His genuine interest contrasted sharply with the dismissive child who had destroyed my graduation cake. People said the same about your last soccer trophy, Amanda told him. Remember how proud Grandma was? Yeah, but Aunt Rachel's helping sick people. I just kicked a ball. The matter-of-fact comparison, devoid of the jealousy that had characterized my childhood, suggested Amanda's efforts with him were bearing fruit. As the evening wound down, Dad announced they should return to their hotel. At the door, awkward goodbyes gave way to a surprising moment when Mom hesitated, then embraced me briefly. "Your life here," she said quietly, "it suits you." Amanda hung back as my parents escorted Tyler to the elevator. "He's been seeing a child psychologist," she confided. "The behavior issues got worse after you left. School was threatening suspension." "That must have been difficult," I said, genuinely sympathetic. "It made me think about some things." She glanced toward the elevator where our parents waited. "About patterns. About what I want for him versus what I experienced." The moment felt fragile but significant, an acknowledgement without explicit apology. "I'm glad he's getting help," I said simply. "We all are in different ways." She met my eyes directly. "I'm seeing someone too. A therapist, I mean." The admission clearly cost her something in pride. "That takes courage," I told her. "Does it get easier? Looking at yourself honestly." "Easier, no. More worthwhile, yes." She nodded, absorbing this. "Maybe we could talk sometimes. Not like before, but better." I'd like that I realized I meant it. After they left, Nathan helped clear dinner dishes. "That went well," he observed. "Better than you expected." "Different," I replied thoughtfully. It wasn't about getting their approval anymore. It was about them seeing me clearly, maybe for the first time. Later, lying awake beside Nathan's sleeping form, I reflected on the day's subtle shifts. My family had entered my world instead of me desperately trying to fit into theirs. The dynamic had fundamentally changed, not through confrontation or ultimatums, but through my own transformed relationship with myself. The painful catalyst of that ruined graduation celebration had set in motion changes I couldn't have imagined at the time. The broken cake had led not just to broken relationships, but to their potential reconstruction on more honest terms. True healing, I realized, wasn't about forgetting past hurts or pretending they hadn't happened. It was about building something new from the broken pieces, something stronger, more authentic, and finally wholly mine. A year after the conference where my family glimpsed my Seattle life for the first time, I stood once again before a celebration cake. This one adorned with delicate sugar flowers and the words, "Congratulations, Dr. Anderson," commemorated the official approval of our clinical trials, a career milestone that felt particularly sweet after years of dedicated work. The small gathering in my apartment included Nathan, now a fixture in my life, close colleagues from Westlake, friends from my hiking group, and surprisingly, Amanda and Tyler, who had flown in for the weekend at their own suggestion. The absence of my parents invited but claiming a prior commitment felt less like rejection and more like the natural consequence of our still evolving relationship. Speech called Dr. Chen, raising her champagne flute. Standing before this chosen family, I felt a moment of clarity about the journey that had brought me here. 2 years ago, I began a different cake ended up on the floor instead of being celebrated. That moment, painful as it was, became the catalyst for rebuilding my life on my own terms. Tyler, now 12 and significantly matured, shifted uncomfortably at the reference to his past behavior. Amanda placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "I've learned that sometimes our most difficult moments contain the seeds of necessary change," I continued. "That setbacks often redirect us toward paths we might not have chosen, but desperately needed." Looking around the room at the faces of people who valued me for exactly who I was, I added, "I've also learned that family comes in many forms. Some connected by blood, others by choice, all valid, all precious." As glasses clinked and conversation resumed, Amanda approached. "Mom sent something," she said, extending a small gift bag. "She wanted to be here, but—" "I understand," I replied genuinely, meaning it. My parents' limited capacity for change was something I'd come to accept without resentment. Inside the bag, I found a framed photo I'd never seen before myself at perhaps 7 years old, proudly displaying a science fair ribbon. A note in my mother's handwriting read simply, "We didn't always know how to celebrate you. I'm trying to learn." The modest acknowledgement represented more growth than I'd thought possible a year earlier. Not the sweeping apology or dramatic reconciliation of movie scripts, but a small, genuine step toward recognition. Tyler hovered nearby, watching my reaction. "Are you going to cut the cake?" he asked. I promised not to push this one. The attempt at humor acknowledging his past behavior while demonstrating his growth surprised me. "Would you like to help?" I offered. Together we sliced the cake and distributed pieces. The simple cooperation felt symbolic of the changes in our relationship. When Tyler asked about my research and actually listened to the explanation, Amanda caught my eye with a look that communicated volumes about their parallel journeys in therapy. Later, as Nathan and I cleared dessert plates, he nodded toward Amanda and Tyler, laughing with my colleagues across the room. They're different from when I first met them. We all are, I acknowledged. Growth isn't linear, but it's possible. That evening, after everyone departed, I added the day's photos to my gallery wall, visual evidence of celebration without sabotage of achievement, recognized without qualification. Beside them, I placed the childhood science fair photo from my mother, acknowledging both what had been lacking and what was slowly being reconstructed. My weekly therapy sessions had tapered to monthly check-ins, focusing less on healing past wounds and more on building future vision. During our last appointment, Dr. Rosenberg had asked what I considered the most important lessons from my 2-year journey. The question had prompted deep reflection. Beyond the specific dynamics of my family, what universal truths had I discovered? First, I'd learned that healing rarely follows the path we expect. The broken cake that seemed like my lowest moment had actually been the necessary catalyst for profound change. Pain, when we allow ourselves to fully experience it rather than suppress it, can become transformative. Second, I'd recognized that worth isn't bestowed by others, but claimed by ourselves. My childhood pattern of seeking validation from parents who couldn't provide it had been replaced by internal measures of achievement and authentic connection. Third, I discovered that boundaries aren't walls, but necessary frameworks for healthy relationships. My distance from my family hadn't destroyed our connection, but had created space for it to potentially evolve into something more sustainable. Fourth, I'd learned the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Forgiving my family's limitations didn't require pretending they didn't exist or hadn't caused harm. It simply meant releasing the expectation that they should have been different, allowing me to move forward without the weight of resentment. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, I'd recognized that families, whether biological or chosen, are complex systems rather than static entities. Change in one part inevitably affects the whole. My refusal to continue old patterns had created ripple effects. I couldn't have anticipated, from Tyler's therapy to Amanda's self-examination to my parents' tentative steps toward acknowledgement. These insights hadn't emerged instantly, but had gradually clarified through consistent therapy, supportive relationships, and deliberate self-reflection. The journey from humiliation to self-respect had unfolded one small decision at a time. Each boundary established, each achievement celebrated, each authentic connection honored, building toward the life I now inhabited. Nathan's arms encircled me as I stood contemplating the gallery wall. Deep thoughts. Just reflecting on the journey, I replied, leaning into his embrace. From cake on the floor to cake on plates. From seeking approval to giving myself permission. From surviving to thriving. A worthy journey, he observed. Though I suspect it's far from over. He was right, of course. Healing wasn't a destination, but an ongoing process. My relationship with my family would continue to evolve with progress and setbacks along the way. The difference now was that my well-being no longer depended on their capacity for change. My phone chimed with a text from Amanda. Tyler, can't stop talking about your science lab. Thanks for making him feel welcome today. Working on mom and dad for next time. The simple message confirmed what I'd come to understand: transformation happens in small moments, not grand gestures. Real change emerges from consistent actions rather than dramatic declarations. The path forward would undoubtedly include challenges, family holidays with old patterns threatening to resurface, career decisions that might trigger familiar insecurities, relationships that would test newly established boundaries. But I faced these possibilities from a foundation of self-knowledge and hard-won wisdom. Sometimes the most painful moments break us open to greater possibility. Sometimes humiliation becomes the doorway to dignity. Sometimes a ruined celebration leads to a life truly worth celebrating. So what about you? Has a painful moment ever become the catalyst for necessary change in your life? Have you experienced the challenge of establishing boundaries with family? Share your story in the comments below. This community understands that healing is both personal and universal. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this journey resonated with you, and remember that sometimes our breaking points become our breakthrough moments. Thank you for witnessing my story, and may you find the courage to honor yours, whatever it may be.